Sherry, are you the only other? Scarf on. You got a scarf on.
Well, I suppose it doesn't really go with my outfit, but oh well.
It'll probably be in vogue. Who wore it best?
I just put it on because I'm cold, but I will say the pledge.
Okay.
Let's fix this.
All right. All right. I see Ms. Moore has started recording, so we will get going here today. I will call the St. Paul City Council to order. Roll call.
Yang.
Here.
Jalali.
Here.
Naker.
Here.
Prince.
Here.
Tao.
Here.
Tolbert.
Here.
Council President Brenmon.
Here.
7 present, no one absent.
Please stand while Councilmember Prince leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda items 8 through 18 are before you for your consideration.
All right. We need to pull item number 9, and we need to pull item number 14. Is there anything else that should be taken separately? All right, and this is a reminder we share from time to time, but we put stuff on the consent agenda. We can always take it off consent agenda, but we do our best guessing in advance, and then when it comes time to do the meeting, the intention isn't that we just won't talk about it, but we have that option if it's universally supported. But in this case, we just want to pull these 2 items off and just kind of housekeeping on how we run our meetings here. So item 9 and 14, Mr. Tolbert moves the balance of the consent agenda. Any discussion? Roll call.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The consent agenda is adopted as amended. Item 9 is Resolution 21-1646, establishing the City Council Legislative Advisory Committee on Garbage.
And this item, I'd like to request a 1-week layover. We are certainly supportive of an advisory committee on garbage as our contract comes up for renewal. The devil's in the details, and this current version of this needs some clarification and improvement. So we'll give them 1 week to tighten it up, and it will be back before us for a vote. Any discussion on my request for a 1-week layover? All right, seeing none, roll call.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is laid over to December 8th. Item 14 is Resolution 21-1682, authorizing the city to transfer $5,456,090 of American Rescue Plan funds to a specific account for public safety radio replacement costs.
All right, this item, Director Shute is here to give us a brief staff report. There is a version 2 in Legistar, which reduces this amount significantly in anticipation of some federal grant money. Oh, but it looks like Laura Logston put on her camera, so perhaps Laura Logston is in the house on this item.
Thanks, Council President Brenmon. Yes, and I just have a few short slides, so if I could be made a presenter, that'd be great.
You're good.
Thank you. All right. Can everyone see my slides? Perfect, thanks. So Council President Brenbowen and council members, I'm Laura Logston. I'm a program administrator with the Office of Financial Services. I'll provide a brief summary today of Resolution 21-1682, which budgets American Rescue Plan funds as one source being used to replace the city's public safety radios. We're bringing an updated version today, as the council president mentioned, than was originally submitted, that reduces the amount of ARP budgeted for radio replacement by $2 million. So for background, the city operates on the state's ARMOR network, which is the shared public safety radio communication system owned and operated by the Minnesota Department of Transportation. It's used by several state agencies and is shared with local governments and other emergency response organizations, so all responders have interoperable communications with one another. The city procured its current radios in 2003, meaning that they've been in service now for 17 years. The typical lifespan for these radios is 8 to 12 years, and our radios are currently at end of life and have been unsupported by the manufacturer since 2018. Having unsupported digital and voice communications equipment creates life safety risks for our first responders. The city has sought a solution to replace the radios for several years, which comes at a high cost. With the ARP funding and several other sources, which I'll describe in the next slide, the city can move forward now with replacing these essential public safety resources. In terms of timing, this is coming to you now because the city has an opportunity to achieve significant savings in the overall cost of the radio replacement if purchased this year. The city has worked diligently to find a variety of sources to replace the radios. This chart shows the cost of replacing 1,272 radios and 4 digital repeaters in 2001 versus 2002 and the planned sources. You can see between the 2 years, ARP at this point is the only source that would change. If we move forward with the radio purchase now, we can capture savings and keep the ARP contribution lower. The other sources include federal earmark funding, a FEMA Assistance to Firefighters grant, and a local match that is required by the FEMA grant funded with the city's STAR funds. This chart breaks down the types of radios being replaced and the users. This includes handheld and vehicle radios for both police and fire needs. It also includes 4 digital repeaters that extend radio signals and would be placed in areas identified to have intermittent or interrupted signals, ensuring life safety. And finally, this slide just provides some context of how this investment of ARP funds in radio replacement fits into the broader work that the city is engaged in around neighborhood safety. As you're aware, the city has already invested some ARP funding in public safety needs, including the city attorney's office backlog of criminal cases, DSI unsheltered positions, and the fire EMS supervisor. And some ARP funding is also proposed in the 2022 budget for public safety needs. The city also has a variety of other efforts underway that may be addressed with various sources of funding. For example, the Office of Neighborhood Safety and the Optimal Response efforts, which I know you've recently received presentations about, are funded in the 2022 proposed budget in the general fund. So while the budget amendment before you today allocates ARP funding for a portion of the radio replacement cost, we wanted to bring back this more full context of the efforts that the city is working on to address neighborhood safety with a variety of sources. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. And I know Director Shute is also available.
I have a couple questions I would like to start with, and I don't know, Ms. Logston, if you're the right person to answer these questions. Feel free to shoot them off to whomever. But first of all, I'm supportive of this. I'm surprised in some ways that we're using radios for our first responders that are no longer supported by the manufacturer. And a question I have, so I am supportive of this, but I am curious, is there a benefit to owning these radios versus leasing them? It seems like, and I guess that's tied to a second question, because if we were, maybe someone can explain why we can't like keep saving up $500,000 a year or $400,000 a year until the time comes that we need to replace them, and then just use our savings account to pay for them. And I know that that's not the way we are allowed to budget in the city, but just like understanding a little bit why know that we're going to have this anticipated large expenditure, and have been looking for a way to cover it for years. And meanwhile, our city staff is using basically antiquated equipment. Like, is there another way to do this, like saving up, starting to save now for the next time they need to be replaced, and or could we lease instead of own, or is it just doesn't work with the system or too expensive? I'm curious about both.
Sure. Thanks, Council President Brenmoen. And I think with the question on leasing, I think Director Shute is probably the right person to respond to that. So I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Council President Brenmoen, and thank you, City Council, for the opportunity to bring this to y'all and bring it to vote today. With the leasing, we have looked at those options. With the money that's available, there are restrictions about investing that money into any type of interest-bearing contract with a vendor. So there are advantages to leasing, but with the different sources of money that Laura reviewed with you, there are restrictions about using that to invest into something that is going to accrue interest. Now, there is a benefit to owning them as well. As Laura has stated, the average lifespan is 8 to 12 years. And the radios that we're currently using, while they've lasted for 17 years and they're out of manufacturer support, and they are increasing in maintenance costs, they are still usable. And our plan is to invest into the public safety radios where there's a life safety risk at hand, but to repurpose those other radios that we own outright, and we would not be in that scenario with a lease, to be able to satisfy some of the latent needs for the other departments that perform a field service work to the city that requires land mobile communication.
So you're saying it's an asset that we own and can redeploy for other purposes if at the end of a lease, and also beyond the life expected life, we've more than doubled the low end of that with these, whereas with a lease it'd be like kind of rotating more like our computer systems, et cetera. And then
Yes.
just also, can we talk a little bit about why we can't just set up a saving, like have this be a part of the regular cost of our public safety departments, and why we don't just sock away $350,000 a year so that when it comes time to buy them, we have the money?
Council President, I think that might be a question for Director McCarthy. So I'm going to see if he comes off mute.
Council President Brenmoen, can you hear me? Am I on here?
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think it's more similar to how we have treated some of our other capital needs in the city. And as we think about taking a more kind of citywide approach to these radios going forward, I think that's something that we have talked a lot about, looking at citywide management. And you're seeing the emergency management director and the finance staff here today rather than individual departments, because we do want to think about these kind of holistically and manage them across the city rather than a independent department ownership. And when things are independently owned by departments, then it's much more likely to be these just we replace them all when they're done, rather than kind of thinking about the longer term strategic way to invest in these. So I'd just say that I think building for the future, we've learned a lot through this process. We're sort of at this dire need where all of them are at a need for replacement right now, but moving into the future, we do want to think about the full cost of ownership, how we can pass these on, as Director Shute noted, to other personnel when they're maybe past their useful life for kind of frontline emergency responders, and then also think about, right, the PC lease program is one that I keep citing as a reference for this too. It'd be great that when you're just done with it, you swap it out and you get a brand new one, and you don't have to worry so much about these big spikes every 4 or 5 years for these big purchases. So we do want to look at smoothing these replacement schedules out for the future, but are now at a spot where they're sort of all at end of life and need to replace a bunch of them all at once.
So I'm just kind of playing that back a little bit. Looks like we're attempting to shift to a management system that's more like we've discussed with fleet, where we have someone in charge of all of our radios. Cause like, you were talking, I was thinking, I've seen radios in the Parks Department. I've seen radios
Yep.
in Public Works. I've seen them at Como Zoo. So we all use them, and just making sure that we're talking about, this ends up becoming a fire or police conversation as opposed to a city communication, emergency communication. And to me, it seems way more appropriate for this to be coming out of the emergency management team in the future. So I appreciate that clarification. And again, I am supportive. I don't, technology is important. It gets to a point where you can't update things any further. And it seems like we have this opportunity and interest and support from our Congress, from our federal representatives, the senators and the representatives. So I want to take advantage of that as well. So I appreciate the answers on those questions. Sometimes it's complicated. It just seems like, why don't we just sock away a couple extra bucks every year and it would be so easy. And so I appreciate the clarification. I have Ms. Jalali, Ms. Naker, and then Ms. Yang with hands up. Ms. Jalali.
Thanks. My question is that it's my understanding that at minimum ARP funds need to be used to address COVID recovery and rebuilding needs. And I am hearing and receiving information here that says this is a long-standing equipment need that we have not created a system for historically to address the way we would any other department with any other equipment needs. And we're now using one-time federal funds that have been given to us for what I would consider a very different opportunity, which is spurring transformation and rebuilding and resilience for equity in our city. And the request is to use several $1 million of it as a one-off to replace radios that are at a half-life or at a shelf life well beyond that. And I guess I'm just having trouble connecting. In addition to the sort of process and purpose issues, I don't see a clear COVID nexus here other than now we have some bills to pay and here's some money to pay for it. And I'm really concerned about getting into a place with ARP funds and using that as a spending rationale. So is there a clear COVID connection to this, given that the equipment is stated to have gone out of date for many, many years, even before the pandemic?
Sure. Council President Brenmoen and Councilmember Jalali, thank you for that question. The ARP funding includes a category for provision of government services, where we can use an amount of our ARP funding up to our revenue loss due to COVID to cover government services. And in the guidelines, they state pretty clearly that the government recipient of the funding has broad latitude to define government services, and it could include things like, and then it talks about cybersecurity, public safety needs, and capital expenses. So previously, when the council approved 1.7 million of ARP funding for River Center immediate needs, it's falling within that category of provision of government services. So I think you're correct that there is not a direct COVID-caused need for these radios. This is a long-term need, but I think we could also point to a nexus because of the public safety responses and how much public safety has been impacted by COVID. But it will fit within the provision of government services category to be an eligible use.
Okay, I'll let others ask their questions. I continue to be concerned that the way this is coming forward and the sort of purpose behind it is at odds with the process and the purpose we want for ARP as a whole. And, it's not a comment on the practicality of replacing equipment. It's obviously important. This is a question about how we would meet that need. And I am concerned today that this is not a sound use of these resources. I'll let others ask their questions, but I care about making that comment. Thank you.
Ms. Naker, and then Ms. Yang, and then Ms. Prince.
Thanks, Council President. I have two questions. One, Ms. Logsdon, can you just remind us why it's so much cheaper to make this investment December of 21 versus January of 22? And then I'm also wondering, it looks like this is a STAR eligible expense because we're using 100,000 or so of STAR for this. So I know that the provision of government funds part of ARP is that very special, flexible, right, $40 million source that we're trying to preserve at all costs because it can be used for anything. Is there a reason why the department is not proposing that we use more of our STAR dollars towards this, freeing up ARP, for example, some of our STAR dollars that we expect to come in over budget at the end of the year, things like that?
Sure. Council President Bremo and Councilmember Naker, thanks for those questions. I think in response to the first, Director Shute might want to jump in with more details, but my understanding is that the price of the radios is going up next year. There are a variety of factors impacting that, but the city has been working really diligently with the vendor to secure kind of economies of scale and to ensure that we have the best price possible, and that's something that Director Shute has been working with them on. And so basically the quote that we've received for this year is a lower rate than what we could anticipate receiving next year. I don't know, Director Shute, if you'd like to weigh in on that anymore.
Yeah, and I will add that we have been earnestly pursuing additional grant funding, such as the Assistance to Firefighter Grant on a perennial basis, as well as the Office of Justice Grant, the COPS grant for $2 million that is waiting on final enactment of the budget to see if that one, which has survived many gates to be where it's at, where others have fallen off, other grants. So with Assistance to Firefighter Grant money, allowed to be braided with potentially $2 million of earmark money with the STAR grants, we get the greatest volume discount along with the price increase of change across the industry that is going to be seen regardless of vendor. But we get the greatest volume discount when we buy the greatest volume at the same time in that economy of scale. So the quote that we have has a vendor included volume discount and a vendor included incentive to contract and ship this year. That calculus will change next year, and that's what's driving the pursuit of fiscal efficiency to do this all at once.
And was there a second part of your question that was not answered?
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Naker, I can address that question. I would say the first piece of that is that our sales tax collections are on a lag, so that we are still collecting those dollars. And as we were putting this finance plan together, that's just sort of the nature of how long these things take when we're braiding all those different funding sources, as Director Shute noted. So we've been working on this for a long time. The last piece that was needed for this was a grant match to the AFG grant, and that was at the point at which we felt confident enough in our sales tax collections to say that we could tap into those. I think as we look to wrapping up the 2022 budget, I think there's going to be more demands on those sales tax collections, and that is often how we kind of finalize budget processes. And so I think our general approach had been to be conservative with the use of those sales tax dollars until we were sure of the finalizing the 2022 budget and 2021 as well. But I think you're right that they are an eligible expense, and so we thought, as we needed that grant match, that it was a good fit for that piece.
Great, thank you. Ms. Yang and then Ms. Prince.
Thank you. I have questions about the grant that brought the amount from 5.4 million to about 3.4 million. Can you share more about it, like in terms of whether this is a grant that can be reapplied like year after year, and like what is the source or the name of the grant as well?
Sure, Council President Bremen and Councilmember Yang. The additional funding that brought down this budget amendment amount for ARP is the federal earmark dollars. We're anticipating $2 million in federal earmarks to go towards radio replacement. So that would be a one-time federal grant.
Okay, thank you. I have just wanted to share my general thoughts about this. I feel like what I'm sharing here shouldn't be new at all to anyone at the table here, because it's something that we've already discussed so much in the past when we did have about 5 different ARP funding requests coming our way. And I really feel like for this, it was so random. It came out of the blue. And I know several of us had to reach out directly to city staff to get more information about it. I feel that process is, one, it's really frustrating. But also the second thing is that there's just a really huge disregard for the type of collaboration that the council here has always demanded and spoke up about wanting to have, not only with the director, but also for, well, you know, with our entire administration. I don't want to see that continue at all, because I feel like all of us want to be partners at the table. I feel like the frustrating part about this is that I know all of us, you know, we have different priorities that we would want to see ARP money be used for, and for you know, requests like this to come bit by bit, you know, even though we've already talked about wanting to see it be brought to us as a whole. Just I feel like it, you know, it's a really big disservice to what we want to accomplish for the folks in our city here. I feel like, you know, when I think about how much of a priority this is compared to serving the folks who are living in the highest poverty levels in our city, this definitely does not come up on top at all. And so I feel there's actually way much more important uses for our ARP dollars. And so I will not be supporting this today.
Ms. Prince.
I would like to touch on a number of comments that my colleagues have already made. I agree with Ms. Yang that the information coming from the administration on these things is far too little, too late. You know, to see this use of ARP money coming forward, I'm a strong supporter of having good equipment for our public safety people. My understanding was that the DOJ grant that we were getting through the federal earmarks was going to cover this. So understanding now that it doesn't cover the full amount, I understand why we need to come up with the money. I don't understand 17 years of kind of knowing that this is going to be, you know, this is something we're going to have to invest in when we're not being covered by the manufacturers anymore. It just seems like this is not the way to run this shop. And I strongly support Council President Brenmoen's idea that we've got to figure out how to be budgeting for this on an ongoing basis so that we're not all of a sudden in the position of having to come up with $3.4 million of, you know, of this money that fell from the sky. I mean, what were we going to do this year about this expense if we didn't have ARP money? Can you respond to me on that? I mean, it's obviously a concern that we could see coming forward. So what were your thoughts about how we were going to cover this?
Council President Brenmoen and Councilmember Prince, thanks for that question. I mean, I think as Director Shute has mentioned, that the city has been working diligently to find alternative funding sources. So this year, that's really seems to be panning out with the FEMA grant for the assistance for firefighters, in addition to really pushing for the federal earmark funding. So I know the city has been looking for sources for this over time.
Well, I think we've got to do a better job, and I'm really sad about the fact that we're nickel and diming away our American Rescue Plan money when we have so many significant needs for the future of our city. So I'm going to vote for this. I know that we need it, but we need to be, as Councilmember Yang said, and to Councilmember Jalali's point, we need to be looking at that asset as something that we're working together on, because we should not be getting these requests at the 11th hour for art money because we have failed to properly budget for an ongoing capital cost over a number of years.
And thank you for that, Councilmember Prince. And you and I have, I think, both chimed in a lot about the. I don't think this is a 2-year problem. It's a 3 decades problem of kicking the can down the road. And it seems like this is another example of, when we're like, well, I don't want to pay for or I don't want to use this money for this. Then the question is, well, what money should we use for it? And it's always we lose. Every time we fund something, we lose something from another place, and it's hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's very challenging to figure out what has to go in order to pay for something as boring as a radio. when we know that the needs are so high. So I think that this council has expressed a very firm commitment to fiscal management that includes not kicking the can down the road. And I do feel like this is a step in that direction. The thing that I was really grateful to hear is that we're beginning to look at this similarly to fleet, and that I think it belongs in emergency management and something that we should be squirreling away dollars for on an ongoing basis so that we don't have these large fund or requests come in front of us. I do also share concerns about ARP funds, but I also do think that the point of them is to use them to help offset some of the expenses we've had in our budget this year. And as I said, I am supportive of this, but that doesn't by any means discount any concerns that my colleagues shared about wanting to be more engaged in our ARPA big picture planning process. And I do think that when we continue to vote on things on a bit by bit basis, I think we're afraid that someday we're going to turn around and our ARPA dollars are going to be gone. So just getting a better understanding of the full ledger is something that is a priority to us as well. Are there more comments on this authorization version 2, which authorizes $2 million less? So otherwise, the version 2 is the same as what is in initially in Legistar. The version 2 is what we'll move today. Any further discussion on that? All right, and that is Mr. Tolbert moves version 2. Roll call.
Yang,
No.
Jalali,
No.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
No.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
4 in favor, 3 opposed, those being council members Yang, Jalali, and Tao. The resolution is adopted. We now have a suspension item.
Yep, thank you for that. Ms. Naker moves suspension of the rules. Roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tobert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed, rules are suspended. Resolution 21-1749, affirming the extension of declaration of local emergency issued November 29th, 2021 by Mayor Melvin Carter III.
All right, and I will look to our legal counsel to correct me if I'm not accurate in this, but we have many times over the past 19 or 20 months have voted to extend our emergency order. Today it's coming in under suspension because when the mayor signs an emergency order, we have 3 days in which to ratify it at the council. We are extending this emergency order for 35 days, which will bring us to January 5th, 2022. So if we need to make another extension, we can do that at our regularly scheduled council meeting. But at this time, intention is to be really looking at what emergency orders we've had in place during COVID and figure out what we want to keep because it's made the world a better place here in St. Paul and what we can't wait to get rid of. But overall, just trying to work our way back to normalcy. And we know that, recent virus variants have put things in question. So we do have that option if we need to further extend the emergency order. But I think the intention at this point is to be back in council chambers. And if we need to extend it at that time, before we go into back into our full meeting schedule, we can do it in 35 days. So this is similar to what we passed. Usually it's a 90-day extension. Today is a 35. That's discussion on this item. All right, seeing none, Ms. Naker moves approval. Roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted. Item 19 is Resolution 21-1575, approving the application with conditions per Deputy legislative hearing officer for DWD Group LLC, doing business as Billy's on Grand for a liquor on sale Sunday, liquor on sale 2 a.m. closing, liquor outdoor service area, patio entertainment, and gambling location licenses located at 857 Grand Avenue. This item has been laid over from November 17th.
I believe there's a request from Ward 2 and DSI for a 2-week layover to 12/15, December 15th. Is that correct, Ms. Naker?
That's correct.
All right, so there is a request from Ms. Naker for a 2-week layover on this item. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is laid over to December 15th. Item 20 is first reading of ordinance 21-52, granting the application of Selby Flats LLC to rezone property at 1708 Selby Avenue from B2 community business to RM2 medium density multiple family residential and amending chapter 60 of the legislative code pertaining to the zoning map.
And this is the first reading of this ordinance, and I believe that we have a brief staff report from Katie Dadlis. Is that correct, Ms. Jalali?
That's correct. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Dadlis, it's all you.
Thank you, Council President Brenmo, members of the City Council. Please let me know you can hear me. Yes, great, thank you. I'm Katie Dadlis. I'm a planner in the city's Department of Planning and Economic Development, and I'm the planner that's assigned to the Union Park neighborhood. And I am going to go ahead and share my screen quickly so that we can give a presentation here, and let me know you can see my screen as well. Yes? Okay, great, thank you. So the request before the council is for rezoning the property at 1708 Selby Avenue from B2 to RM2. It's from a business district to a residential multifamily district. Just to orient the council members real quickly, on the right-hand side is an aerial that shows the location of the property on the south side of Selby Avenue. It's between Aldine and Herschel Street. Just as a larger context for the city, this site is between Snelling Avenue and Fairview Avenue, kind of right in between those two along Selby Avenue. There's a land use map on the left-hand side that gives you a sense of the area. Again, the property to be rezoned is outlined in blue here. On the north side of Selby Avenue is some single-family homes and some commercial use. On the south side is an apartment building, and to the west is some single-family homes, and to the south, single-family homes and another apartment building. A quick look at the zoning map for the area. Again, property to be rezoned outlined in blue here. So property is currently zoned commercial, and there's commercial zoning immediately to the east and across the street to the north on the corner. Property immediately to the west is already zoned RM2, as is the balance of the block on the north side of the block. With RT1, it's a single family duplex zoning district immediately to the south. Just to give you a sense of the area, there's some photographs here. So the property, this is the north side of Selby Avenue across from the subject property. Commercial use on the corner, residential uses to the west. This is south of the property, so this isn't on Selby. This is properties that are fronting on Hague Avenue to the south. Again, I had mentioned an apartment building there, and then some lower density single family uses to the west. East of the subject property, this is Aldine Street here. Again, there's an apartment building there and then a commercial use on the corner. And then immediately to the west of the subject property are 3 single family homes and then a commercial building on the corner at Herschel. This is the property requested to be rezoned as 1708 Selby. The property immediately to the west is 1712, and this is 1716. And those are both currently zoned RM2 and would be part of the overall project that the applicant is proposing. This is the property itself that's subject for the request for rezoning. Single story commercial building. You can see again that apartment building immediately to the east. There's a curb cutoff of Selby Avenue. And it's got about 40 feet of frontage on the street and a little over 4,000 square feet. So applicant is requesting the rezoning from B2 to RM2. And his intention, as I noted earlier, would be to combine it with the property at 1712 and 1716 Sylvia Avenue, which, as I noted, are currently zoned RM2. And the intention would be to construct an apartment building, 36 to 38 units. There would be 5 stories with 17 to 19 parking spaces at the ground level and apartments above. Mostly 1-bedroom and studio units are proposed, with a few 2-bedroom units. And if the rezoning of 1708 Selby is not approved, then the applicant would just use the properties at 1712 and 1716 to be redeveloped for an apartment. There are a number of findings that need to be met to rezone the property. One relates to the zoning being consistent with the way the area is developed. The RM2 district is designed for multifamily residential uses and intended to foster and support pedestrian and transit-oriented residential development, and to provide for infill housing to meet the variety of housing needs. There's existing housing in the area. It's a mix of densities from 1 and 2 family homes to apartments with multiple units. Also, commercial uses on the corners nearby, as we noted in the photographs and the maps, and also at intersections in mid-block in the surrounding blocks. Next finding relates to consistent we see with the St. Paul Comprehensive Plan. The staff report and the resolution go into more detail, but generally speaking, the rezoning or the land use plan in the comprehensive plan identifies Selby Avenue from Snelling to Fairview as a mixed-use area. This property is in proximity to a neighborhood node at Snelling and Selby. It's a location that's planned for higher density. And housing policy in the comprehensive plan calls for supporting development of new housing, particularly in areas identified as mixed use to meet the demand for livable walking, living in a walkable neighborhood and areas that are transit accessible. In addition, there are some policies in the local community plan, the Union Park Community Plan. There's a land use plan that calls for maintaining and establishing zoning that encourages compact development in commercial areas and in mixed use corridors, and a housing policy that in a plan that calls for supporting multi-unit mixed use development in mixed use corridors that can accommodate higher density levels. And then the final finding relates to the zoning being compatible with uses in the surrounding area. The proposed RM2 zoning for this property is compatible with the existing RM2 zoning district to the north and to the west, and the surrounding mix of residential uses and densities and nearby commercial uses and zoning. I noted there were apartment buildings immediately to the east and to the southeast of the property. And the property is about 2 blocks south of the transit line that runs along Marshall Avenue, and about 3 blocks to the west of the transit that runs along Snelling Avenue. And Selby Avenue itself was a former streetcar line with a mix of uses and densities. So based on these findings, in its resolution, the Planning Commission recommends approval of the request to rezone from B2 to RM2, the property at 1708 Selby Avenue. So that's, and I would like to add, the Union Park District Council did not make a recommendation on the request. Their executive committee did conduct a vote, but there were 2 in support, 2 in opposition, and 1 abstention. We received no letters in support to date, and we received 6 letters in opposition. They focused on concerns about parking and the scale of the development, density, rental versus ownership units, traffic, the fact that there was no alley in this location to provide a buffer from neighboring properties to the south, lack of community input and adverse impacts to neighboring properties. And during the zoning committee public hearing, a petition was signed by 35 people in opposition to the rezoning. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions if council members have them.
Great, thank you for that report.
Mm-hmm.
Are there questions for Ms. Dadlis? It does not look like there's questions. Ms. Jalali.
But some of them are minor. Thank you so much, Katie, for being here. One of the slides mentioned ground floor parking spaces. Does that mean the owner's intention is to create like a ground floor covered parking level with housing units above that, or that they want like a parking lot, or is that not known at this point?
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Jalali. So the applicant's proposal would be to have parking at ground level structured with the apartments above it. Information that he provided during the public hearing at the zoning committee meeting indicated that initially their plan was just to do an apartment on the 1712 and 1716 properties. And they found that they weren't able to provide any parking in that arrangement in order to make their numbers work. And so they looked at the property next door in order to be able to combine it, to be able to make it work, to be able to provide some parking. So that's the reason for the request for rezoning. They've indicated that if the rezoning isn't approved, they would probably still go ahead with the development again on 1712 and 1716, but likely perhaps with no parking at that point, and then it would just be on-street parking available for the residents.
So the rezoning allows them to create more units with adequate parking on site that is not in a parking lot form. It is basically part of the structure.
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Jalali, that's right.
Thank you. I'm just trying to understand factually what's going on, and appreciate you noting as well. This is 2 blocks off of bus rapid transit and a major commercial node with a lot of high density housing right in the area. So I do agree with the findings that the scale in the neighborhood and the planning is in line with what is there. So I don't know that I have questions beyond this. You know, I look forward to more input on this. I am supportive of the project and of the rezoning. Wanted to understand those pieces and how it fits in. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Jalali. Ms. Prince?
Thank you, Council President Brenmon, and thank you, Ms. Detlefs. Could you just put the map up again showing the site? I'm confused about, is the plan to take down the neighboring apartment building to build this? I'm just confused about the site that we're rezoning is just that small one, that little building. So
Yeah, can you read my?
So that's what I'm trying to figure out. So the 2 buildings there will become the 38 unit. Maybe if you show me just if you could indicate, is that, if we rezone that parcel, which is what we're being asked to do today, that's where the 5-story 38 unit building will go?
Council President Brenmo and council members, our Councilmember Prince. So the property requested to be rezoned is outlined in blue on this map.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the development itself would occur on that parcel as well as the 2 parcels to the west.
Okay.
The apartment building on the corner, I think is the one you're referring to, would remain.
Okay. I was confused about, oh, I see now. Okay, so it's the neighboring 2 properties. And then the 3rd one, is that privately owned, or that's not part of the development?
That's right. It's not part of the development.
And do you know if those 2 buildings have been purchased?
They have.
Yes. Okay. Okay, thanks. I just needed to get clarity on what the site was exactly.
Are there any other questions on this item? All right, and just a reminder that this is our first reading of the ordinance. We will have a public hearing next week and vote after that, the week after that. So we've been doing it for almost a year now, but just a reminder that this is now a 3-step process with a public hearing on the opening. So we have a good opportunity between when we first hear it till when we vote on it with the public hearing about the changes and as well as council members. So if there are no other questions for staff or for each other, then Sherry will lay it over for 1 week.
Yes, that's correct. Item 21 is first reading of ordinance 21-53, considering the application of Jerry and Catherine Ballman to rezone property at 1329, 1331 Lincoln Avenue from RT1 to family residential to RM1 low density multiple family residential.
All right, and I do not believe we're getting a staff report on this item.
So the ordinance is laid over to December 8th for second reading, public hearing. Item 22 is resolution public hearing 21-274, authorizing the Department of Parks and Recreation to accept Minnesota Department of Natural Resources Outdoor Recreation Grant Program funds, enter in a grant agreement required as a condition of receiving said funds, which includes an indemnification clause, and to amend the financing and spending plan in the amount of $250,000 for the Victoria Park multi-use athletic field project.
All right, and this public hearing has been held virtually. Hopefully that virtual public hearing will be coming to an end sooner than later. But we have, folks have contributed their thoughts online by email or by phone. As such, Ms. Naker would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 23 is resolution public hearing 21-317, amending the financing and spending plan of the Office of Financial Services and Department of Public Works in the amount of $48,974 to utilize available capital maintenance funds for costs related to multiple HVAC renovation projects.
All right, this public hearing has been held online. As such, Mr. Tao would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 24 is resolution public hearing 21-320, authorizing an increase in the Parks and Recreation Grant Fund budgets in the amount of $1,056,000 to reflect various grant funding awarded in 2022 and establishing the appropriate grant activity budgets.
Okay. So this public hearing has been held virtually. As such, Ms. Jalali would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 25 is resolution public hearing 21-325, authorizing the police department to add fund equity to its 2021 special fund operating budget to reflect expenditures more accurately.
All right, this public hearing has been held virtually. As such, Ms. Naker moves to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 26 is resolution public hearing 21-321, authorizing the Department of Planning and Economic Development to execute a grant agreement with the State of Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, which includes an indemnification clause, acceptance of grant funds, and amendment of related city budgets.
This public hearing has been held virtually. As such, Ms. Naker would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 27 is resolution public hearing 21-322, approving the petition of Matthew Michael on behalf of Nolan Holdings LLC to vacate a 2-foot portion of Wynn Avenue abutting 1611 Wynn Avenue.
All right, and this public hearing has been held virtually, so Ms. Jalali would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 28 is resolution public hearing 21-323, approving the application of Cathedral Heritage Foundation, Carolyn Will, for a sound level variance in order to present live amplified sound for the Cathedral Festival of Lights on December 15th through the 19th at Cathedral Hill Park, 215 Summit Avenue.
All right, and this public hearing has been held virtually, so Mr. Tao would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 29, resolution public hearing 21-327, amending the 2021 spending budgets for the Public Works, Traffic Building, and the Grant Fund related to the LED electrical retrofit.
All right, this public hearing has been held virtually, and Mr. Tolbert moves to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted.
Okay,
The legislative
Go ahead.
Okay. Legislative Hearing Officer recommends adoption of the following resolutions as no objections to these recommendations were received. Item 30, RLH BBR 21-75, 201 Genesee Street. Item 31, RLH BBR 21-78, 160 Granite Street. Item 32, RLH RR 21-65, 701 Hazel Street North. Item 33, RLH OA 21-16, 620 Jessamine Avenue East. Item 34, RLH BBR 21-71, 1125 Margaret Street. Item 35, RLH TA 21-472, 1817 Maryland Avenue East. Item 37, RLH BBR 21-73, 912 Rose Avenue East. Item 40, RLH BO 21-43, 360 Wheelock Parkway East. Item 41, RLH RR 21-43, 521 York Avenue. And item 42, RLH BBR 21-74, 1739 York Avenue. And the motion is to adopt these items.
All right, so moved by Ms. Yang. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince, Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearings are closed and the resolutions are adopted. For the following items, no objections to the legislative hearing officer's amended recommendations were received, and therefore she recommends amendment and adoptions of items 38, RLH RR 21-44, 1179 7th Street East. And item 39, RLH RR 21-62, 1514 Van Buren Avenue. And again, the motion is to amend and adopt these items.
So moved by Ms. Jalali. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearings are closed and the resolutions are adopted as amended. And for the following item, the legislative hearing officer's recommendation is contested and additional testimony from the appellant is in the record. Item 36, RLH BO 21-41, 1843 Minnehaha Avenue East, and we have a staff report.
Welcome, Ms. Mormont.
Thank you, Council President Brenmon, council members. In this particular case, in September, orders were issued for a variety of items at this property, including correcting the situation with the garage where the walls are in a state of failure. This is a garage that's built into a hill, and so there are soil pressures on the walls, and you can see from the photographs that they're bowing inward, and there's some cracking and failure in there. The question then becomes, do we get an engineer's analysis from the owner? And the owner did seek one, which indicated that the walls needed bracing. My recommendation to you was that bracing, repair, or removal of the garage occur by January 1st of 2022. The owner submitted yesterday additional engineering information indicating that his engineer thought that that could wait until as late as July of 2022 to permanently brace. I went over the engineering information with our city's structural engineer and believe that a good recommendation to you is to grant an extension to March 1st for there to be at least temporary bracing of the walls, and that would be conditioned on not using the garage for any purpose in the interim, and then they can take longer to do the full repair and more extensive bracing if necessary. But again, the owner is asking for July of 2022, and I'm recommending less than that.
All right, and can you remind me the date that you're recommending?
I am recommending March 1st of 2022, and that is an amended recommendation based on yesterday's engineering information.
Okay, I just missed that date. Thank you so much, Ms. Mormon. Any questions from Ms. Mormon? Ms. Prince?
Yes, I would just like to thank Ms. Mormon for her diligence here in getting a report from the structural engineer, and I support this amended resolution and move approval.
All right, there's a motion from Ms. Prince. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tobert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted as amended.
All right, that brings us to the end of this week's agenda. Before we sign off, I'd just like to offer time and space if people have things they'd like to share, upcoming events, activities, announcements from their ward or beyond. I see Ms. Prince.
Yeah, and I am really pleased to report that for East Side elders living in Dayton's Bluff, Payne Phelan, and Conway Battle Creek, the East Side Elders Organization is offering free snow shoveling. Hopefully it'll be a while before you have to deal with that, but you can just contact the East Side Elders and get on the list to register for this season, and volunteers will help by shoveling your sidewalk and a path to your door. Driveway clearing is not included. But I do want to say also, if you're interested in volunteering for East Side Elders, it's a wonderful organization providing really important service in our community.
That's awesome. Thank you. Now we just need some snow, right?
Yeah.
I'm crossing my fingers for it. I walked out this morning and I was like, boo, it rained. Boo. It's time for some of that fluffy stuff. Any other announcements or news from the wards? All right, just a reminder to my colleagues that we are not done today. We're done with this agenda, but we have Truth and Taxation at 6:00 p.m. When you sign in, make sure that you sign into the Truth and Taxation hearing, not a continuation of this meeting. We have some folks registered to speak tonight at Truth in Taxation, which again is a required activity by the state legislature to allow people an opportunity to come in and share their feedback about property taxes, although the council has been diligent in trying to provide opportunities to participate in our budgeting process earlier in the year, since by the time Truth in Taxation rolls around, it's pretty late in the game to start shifting things around in the budget. So we did have a public hearing. That was our meeting in the wild / the wind. And have continued to meet with our community members throughout this process. So tonight is a formality. We will hear from a few folks. We'll be doing it virtually. There may be some folks in the council chambers, but that will begin at 6 o'clock tonight at a different meeting link than this one. And I look forward to seeing folks at Truth and Taxation at 6 o'clock. Make sure you have some dinner. All right. All right. Thanks, folks. There's nothing else to come before us. We are adjourned.